Thank you, Carrie, very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about interoperability as a team sport. So, question? Or it's just an echo I'm hearing in the room here. Really, in order for this integration, to make integration simple, you have to have many people come into alignment, and there's a lot of stakeholders that's involved. I think the previous speakers and sessions here have discussed the number of the various facets and the different sorts of folks that are involved with this. So I'm going to talk a little bit more and build on what Dave just talked about with ecosystems. We start out usually with interoperability talking about standards, and these standards really apply to interfaces. That's the place where things come together and connect. And these things make it simple to install. So the example was given of something like a USB port, or in the case of electricity, a plug in a wall, or a USB power port, both communication and power that's going across that interface. So there are key aspects of that. The GUAC stack that was shown by David Forpia before has many different dimensions to interoperability, things like discoverable interfaces. Once you plug in, you can actually discover who's on the other side of that interface, and you can start to automate the process of getting them to talk together and work, for example. Identity, things like identity, where you know uniquely who it is that you're talking to through that interface. And there's a good body of work, particularly in the IT space, software development, which has advanced over the years and matured over the years to make these interfaces come together more easily. That's a start, but it's not enough. We've talked about testing and certification and different types of testing and certification that's involved. You can test against a standard. A standard often has many different options. It can have things that are not understood or commonly interpreted by two different sides. So you have these profiles that end up torquing it down, getting requirements that have to be met within that test. And then you can bring the true interoperability tests are having more than one supplier of technology, have them talk to each other and see if they interpreted the things exactly the same way, not go beyond the test harness and see that these devices work together. That brings a level of trust into community that the things are going to work when you do plug them together, or with a reasonable amount of integration time, it's going to work together. But really, to make that happen, you have to create this market ecosystem. So what is the business behind, what is it that's going to bring the stakeholders, the technology providers together to give to those that are buying the technology something that they can trust is going to work? When I get a router and it's got a Wi-Fi logo on it, I know it's going to work with my equipment. If I have a headset and it's got a Bluetooth logo on it, I know it's been tested and it's certified, and it's got a really high performance chance that it's going to work. I mean, those are consumer products. They're mass produced. There's millions of them, right? So they can afford all that's needed to go into testing and certification. But that's the type of, that ecosystem allowed many different organizations and many stakeholders to all advance and create a bigger business proposition that they could all benefit within. So this is some examples of folks that are involved in that ecosystem, right? You have the users of the technology, or which could be the purchasers, the people like the utilities, and in our case, in the electric system, but they could also be consumers on the consumer side that's buying smart technology that's going to work and coordinate with the electric system. There are the vendors, the technology suppliers, solution providers for that. There's the standards, the SDOs are the standard development organizations that are involved in this. They come together under things like trade associations, so that's why you have like the Wi-Fi Alliance, or in the case of California and in the smart solar inverter technology, there's SunSpec as an example of an alliance there. And you have regulators, governments that can help out, facilitate, universities that can facilitate, consultants, a lot of those around that can help facilitate. All those people need to have a reason, though, to come together. So what is the value proposition that they can all get behind? You have to kind of discover that. That's what alliances are really very careful to try to understand what it is and why should people come to our meetings, participate in standards, do testing, and the other things. So all of these people you have to have that value proposition. And the other thing I wanted to mention here was the champions. So these things don't come together naturally on their own. There's usually somebody in the lead that understands that there's a bigger cause and there's a bigger place to go to, a vision, if you will, where a lot of people can move forward and make progress. And those are the champions. And within each of these organizations, you'll find people that are really leaders in order to make it work.